Let me just very briefly highlight that yesterday, after some very distinguished remarks from Ministry of Climate Change and His Excellency the Ambassador Jacob Denov, the Ambassador of Denmark to Pakistan, we sort of went into these technical, that's what the different frameworks we actually sort of go into, what are the different aspects when you talk about carbon trading or carbon markets. So we started with understanding the Paris Agreement, particularly in the context of Article 6. What is its significance, going into the focus on different articles, particularly 6.2, 6.4, 6.8. We went into its requirements and requisitions for this all things to go ahead and happen. In Article 6.2, we also talked about different pilots and examples that have already been conducted. We talked about engagement of the private sector, linkage of Articles with the 6 with the nationally determined contributions, and also sectors outside of NDCs as well. Then we also deep dive into Article 6 and the voluntary carbon markets, what could be the governance mechanisms. Carbon pricing is a central element of climate mitigation strategies. Carbon markets and carbon taxation, we discussed that in very detail as well. And again, just to briefly highlight for our trainers as well as guests who have joined us today, we did a very comprehensive regulatory need assessment of all the relevant stakeholders that were present in the room, including the regulatory authority. Actually going to ensure that it doesn't lead to our polluting industries or doesn't provide them a leverage to continue the same process and providing that in the form of different financing things. So again, we need to bring clarity in the mechanisms as well. That's something that's really talked about. So while we're discussing in group working different policy instruments that currently could be adopted, and also the decision between whether we should go for the voluntary carbon markets or whether we should go for the compliance market, I think we do have a general consensus that in a short term we initially have to go towards voluntary, but at the same time we need to build the necessary instrument, we have to base the necessary instruments which eventually allow us to move towards the compliance market as well. So again, that has to be some of the very key areas. How we're planning to address the instruments, that still is a challenge which needs to be addressed. Then we also looked at various sectors where the potential for different carbon trading or carbon these do exist. And it does includes, we do completely understand that the head of climate change at the National Disaster and Risk Management first for his keynote address. And so if I could request if you could come to the podium for your remarks as well. Thank you so much.
Apologies, मेरा गला काफी ज़्यादा खराब है. I was just listening to the starting point here, and I already feel missing out on a lot of stuff being discussed yesterday. I myself, being a student of the field, so every day is a learning for us, for the industry, for the country itself, and for the global dynamics as well. And especially when we're moving towards the upcoming COP28. And that too after the COP where the L&D fund was launched. I think this industry is more important than ever. When we're talking about carbon markets, I think I'll like to start from the fact that we're still not clear on the policy side whether to go ahead with the compliance market or to go with the voluntary ones. There are entities who intend hitting a net zero by a certain, say 2030 or a certain period of time. But then there are entities who intend to improve their processes and not indulge into carbon trading. So that's an opportunity for us as well. But clarity is demanded as well, whether we should be going ahead with compliance or voluntary, or is there has to be a mix on both. I personally feel there has to be a mix on both. So you've got to be very clear on how do we intend meeting our NDC targets. And when we pick up the private sector, when we pick up the mitigation side, how can we generate money in an already starving economy? So being a non-tangible output-based industry where the segment where we're talking about today of carbon markets, I think it's a great opportunity moving from climate finance to carbon finance within the country. I'm glad that there were discussions yesterday around Article 6 and then its implementation 6.2, 4 and 6 for that matter. That's immensely important. That first of all we need to understand the sphere where we are working in. Then the opportunities which we have at hand. And opportunity today is always an opportunity lost tomorrow if we do not do anything about it today. Up till now we've only been able to secure one project of mangroves from Karachi, from provincial government in Sindh actually. So that's one for a longer period of time, 60 years. So there has to be a debate whether 60 years is the time when you're going ahead with projects. There are other provinces coming up with similar needs and assessments of the same. But the true value of an asset is still to be determined because probably the framework is not there. And this conference, the yesterday, today, the training also talks about the framework, how to implement. So that's the essence of framework when we talk about it. Because that will include costings and all that stuff. And how to move ahead and in what time. We've been at NDRMF trying to figure out how to move ahead and how to facilitate actually. And in a manner to facilitate and bring together stakeholders who are already working in the same space. We had a private sector engagement about a week, 10 days back in Karachi. It was well represented. It had about 17 industries. And the unfortunate part is, all 17, I see some of the faces here as well, from that conference. All 17 are working in different silos and not talking to each other. A common platform was missing. A common framework is still missing. So NDRMF is trying to play its part to come on board, bring a platform there, make it available to all those who want to be there, and then try to just facilitate the process. Maybe it's not us who has to streamline it or to lead it. It's the industry which will lead by itself. Because when we go for the adaptation mitigation mix, the voluntary and NDCs, and then when you connect that to the climate finance, which is articulated, which is calculated for implementation of NDCs, you will get to figures. And you will get to a clear picture on how to reach and which direction to move in terms of voluntary and when to move towards NDC implementation. So as NDRMF, what we're doing is giving that platform, trying to facilitate, bringing in the international partners, and then going towards the registry, the carbon credit registry. We are also in close coordination with MOCC and coming up with net zero and voluntary carbon markets. I'm glad Dr. Irfan is here and he'll be speaking more on those investments which are being made with the help of NDRMF and MOCC and the outcomes of those studies and assessments which will actually bring us to the framework for that matter. So I wish you all the best for today, building on yesterday and then requesting that we all need to play our role in whatever manner we can. And the biggest point of starting is the learning point and moving towards a policy framework. Because in the absence of framework, we intend to make decisions, we take decisions, we do measures which do not actually bring out results which the segment itself has the capacity to. And then at the same time, I would again request not to oversell the subject as well, because that will eventually kill the subject. So we got to deal the subject on its merits, and I wish you the best of luck for today's discussion, and let's hope we reach on a positive outcome. Thank you so much.